tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. May the Noble Triple Gem bless you all. Today we are going to start with another Dhamma discussion. So last week that we initiated to talk about the faculties, and we talk about the first faculty, Indriya, Saddha Indriya. So Indriyas means dhammas which dominate other ultimate realities, or the chitta and chaitasika. So the faculty has the ability to control or the dominate over other dhammas which arise together, that we know the chitta and chetasika, the mind and the mental factors arise together. So sometimes there are some factors which have the ability to dominate other mental factors and the chitta as well. So there are five those types of factors. They are called faculties, or in Pali, Indriya. So let's see the second Indriya, the faculty, the spiritual faculty of energy, as we discussed the first one last time. Energy. So we are discussing the page number 131. The spiritual faculty of energy, Virya. Energy here means a certain special mental energy that keeps up the perseverance and appropriate commitment of the action and dominance over the things needed to be done. Since it is quite agreeable to oneself and endowed with consciousness and mental states, it becomes a spiritual faculty. Therefore, striving itself is called the spiritual faculty of energy. Energy is twofold: physical energy and mental energy. Physical power is physical energy. It belongs to the form. Form means the rupa here. It is not considered in the case of faculty. What is called the spiritual faculty of energy is mental striving. It is called Chetasika Virya. This can be seen in both wholesome and unwholesome. When striving is made for the unwholesome deeds, it is called the unwholesome faculty of energy. Those who have studied Abhidhamma know that there is mental states called occasionals, or in Pali, pakinnaka. So the virya includes in the pakinnaka chaitasikas, or the occasionals, which arise in the both wholesome and unwholesome. Here, with the factors of enlightenment, we talk about the faculty of energy, which belongs to wholesome things. That wholesome energy is also twofold, as natural energy and meditative energy. Natural energy is the energy of the ordinary person who have not developed the spiritual faculty of energy through the severe practice of meditation and the development of serenity and insight, etc. Though sufficient for the normal activities, that is not sufficient enough for the development of mind to attain the supra-mundane state of path. When practicing meditation, how developed mind becomes weak should be understood from the 8 factors of the lazy persons. These 8 are given in the 8th chapter of the numerical discourses of the Buddha. So the natural energy means here the normal energy when the people do some daily routines. So it is not it does not fall into the category of faculty, because the faculty of energy or virya has more power to practice meditation, insight, and concentration meditations, and develop the spiritual qualities. So the normal energy does not fall into that category. So there are 8 factors of a lazy person. The 8 types of instances for laziness. The practitioner who has not developed energy, when arises certain things to be done, thinking there will be some hard work today, and neglects striving and sleeps without practicing to attain jhana, insight, path, and fruitions, which have not been yet attained. When finished his works, thinking since, very tired now. How can I meditate? He then sleeps, neglecting striving to gain jhana, insight, path, and fruitions. When needs to go somewhere, thinking now I will have to go there and be wearisome, therefore need to sleep now, and then neglecting his meditation, he sleeps. After his journey and tired of thinking, now it is too tired, I cannot do anything else today. He then sleeps without making striving to attain jhana, etc. When he does not get enough meals as expected, thinking today I could not get enough food. I have not enough energy to practice. I am weak. He then sleeps without making striving to attain jhana, etc. After having a big meal, thinking today it is too much food, very heavy, how can I practice? And he then sleeps without making striving to attain jhana, etc. When he has minor illness, thinking if I practice today, this ailment may get worse, therefore better take rest. And then he sleeps without striving to attain jhana, etc. When the sickness is cured, thinking right after this ailment, if I practice now, it might reappear. I should take rest. Then he sleeps without making striving to attain jhana, etc. There are the 8 types of instances for laziness. So those who are lazy thinks in such a way. The energy that is sufficient to engage in meditation to gain jhana, path, and fruitions, the irreversible striving make while practicing meditation is called the developed energy. That development of energy is the energy that becomes the spiritual factor of energy, pertaining to the factors of enlightenment. This is how the persons who has developed it practices at the time of the above mentioned 8 factors. When there is something to do, he thinks, I will have to engage in a task pretty soon. Once I start it, I won't be able to practice serenity and insight. That will be a loss to me. Therefore, I should practice right now. And he strives to attain jhana. After his task, thinking, I had to spend much of my time for work. That was a loss for me. I should practice now to fulfill it, and practice with great striving and engage in his asceticism. When there is a journey to somewhere, or after returning from a journey, or either not enough food was taken or after having a big meal, when he is sick or after recovery of ailment, he practices the same way. The person who practices with a weak spiritual faculty of energy simply spends his time, but never develops his concentration or wisdom. Even after many years of practice, his concentration is the same as it was. His wisdom is also the same as it was. Practicing meditation with a weak spiritual faculty of energy is like doing something with a selfless hand. The person who practices with a developed mind and rapid striving can gain benefits pretty soon. The person who has made striving to earn money, etc., developing the spiritual faculty of energy is easy. The spiritual faculty of energy is also twofold, as physical energy and mental energy. The striving makes while learning the Dhamma, sitting longer, walking as a practice of meditation, etc., that are performing with physical support are called physical energy. What is mental energy is striving that makes while practicing concentration and reflecting upon volitional formation as impermanent, unsatisfactory, and soulless. The practitioner should be comprehensive with both these factors. Physical energy is developed by doing daily chores and fulfilling of severe ascetic practices, such as eating only the alms food collected from houses, remaining in a sitting position, living at the foot of a tree, and living an open space. For the one who has developed physical energy, having established on that it is much easier to develop mental energy. The development of the spiritual faculty of energy should be understood in the four right strivings. The Buddha said, where the spiritual faculty of energy should be seen. Here, the spiritual faculty of energy should be seen in the four right strivings. Katta virindriyan dattabbang, chatusu samma pradhanesu etta virindriyan dattabbang. As we discussed before, Satra Samyak Pradhana Virya, fourfold efforts. That's what here is mentioned. Here mentioned something called ascetic practices. I think you all have heard about Dhutangas. There are a number of Dhutangas, mainly the bhikkhus or the monks are supposed to practice them to develop the virya. So somehow there are the factors that a lazy person finds not to practice the spirituality, and those who have developed the virya is exactly thinking in opposite way, as we discuss here. The spiritual faculty of mindfulness, sati. The mind of the ordinary person is always inclined to the five poles of sensual pleasures and unwholesome deeds. That is the nature of the mind. In order to turn it to wholesome things and keep it in wholesome ways, one has to have a certain power. The mental state that turns the mind from unwholesome things and the five courts of sensual pleasures and establishes it on wholesome is mindfulness. Awareness is another term for that, since it is agreeable with oneself and endowed with consciousness and mental states. It is called mindfulness. When developed and cultivated gradually, it becomes the right mindfulness, the seventh factor of the supra-mundane eightfold path. So here mentions something important, the ordinary persons, the nature of the ordinary person's mind. So the ordinary person's mind is always inclined to the unwholesome or the sensual desires, sensual pleasure, and unwholesome deeds. There's a Pali term called papasming ramati mano, which simply means the ordinary person's mind is enjoy the unwholesome. So there is something should have in our mind to generate wholesome or show the path which means the sati or the mindfulness. So when there is no mindfulness or sati, which means the mind falls to unwholesome. So when we generate the sati, when we arise sati in our mind, which means that we can turn it to wholesome thoughts or wholesome deeds. Developing right mindfulness of the path of Arahant, of the Eightfold Path, is the end of its development. It is not the mindfulness of people who are from time to time engage in meritorious deeds, such as offering alms, but mindfulness that which is developed and cultivated, engage in higher meditation, becomes a spiritual faculty of mindfulness of the factors of enlightenment. Where should there be seen the faculty of mindfulness? The faculty of mindfulness should be seen in the four establishments of mindfulness. The Buddha said, Katta satindriyan dattabbam, chatusu satipatthānesu etta satindriyan dattabbam. Meditation on the establishment of mindfulness is a place where mindfulness is present. When practicing mindfulness of breathing or the contemplation on the parts of the body like head hairs, if the mind remains without roaming, it could be focused on the parts of the body without any difficulty. Also, if the mind remains with the parts of the body, even for a long time, it is to be understood that it is the sign of the development of the spiritual faculty of mindfulness. By the same token, if the mind is quickly distracted, it is to be understood that the spiritual faculty of mindfulness has not yet been developed. So that's what about the sati or the mindfulness. Mainly what mindfulness or the sati does is to remind from unwholesome to wholesomeness, wholesome practices. If there's no sati, which means there's always the mind inclined to unwholesome. The spiritual faculty of concentration, samadhi. It is the nature of all things in the world that they are attracted to beings. The nature of mind is that inclinations sloping and slanting to everything. As a person who strives to grab the whole bunch of apple together loses them all, the mind, when focused on many things, at the same time cannot be gained right knowledge from any. In order to understand each and everything better, the mind should be focused only on one item at a time. Even though the subject is one, there are diversities in it. In order to gain clear knowledge of the object, mind should be focused only one particular thing of such diversities as well. Otherwise, no knowledge can be gained of anything. A skillful artist can draw a picture of a man in 100-fold ways. But those pictures too can be drawn only one at a time. If one strives to draw in manifold ways simultaneously, none of them could be drawn. Taking object for mind is the same. Though the mind is attracted to many objects simultaneously, even many formations of the same object, it is necessary to keep the mind only one object at a time. The spiritual faculty of concentration or the samadhi is the establishment of mind on one particular object and the nature of its domination. That is also a mental state that can be seen in each consciousness. So the concentration is one of the universal mental factors, sabbhacitta sadharana. So it appears in all the chittas, but it does the function of a faculty when it is developed to a certain level. So as much we develop the concentration that we can keep our mind to a certain object to a certain time. If it's less developed, then the mind goes away all the time to different or various objects as the nature of the mind. So that's why it is that we are supposed to develop the concentration of the samadhi to keep the mind to a certain object for some time. The consciousness cannot arise without concentration, but that frail concentration which is in each and every consciousness and of each person is not sufficient enough to practice meditation to gain jhana, etc. Therefore, that is not considered as the spiritual faculty of concentration pertaining to the factors of enlightenment. That concentration can be developed. When concentration is developed and cultivated, many streams of consciousness could be maintained on one object. What is needed to the true friends who practice jhana, etc., is a concentration that could be maintained many streams of consciousness on one object at the same time and same manner. That is a spiritual faculty of concentration of the factors of enlightenment. It is threefold: preparatory concentration, access concentration, and full concentration. In Pali, it is called parikarma, preparatory concentration, parikarma samadhi, the early stage. Then the access concentration, which means upachara samadhi, quite close to the full concentration, arpana samadhi. The third stage is full concentration, arpana samadhi, which means the jhana. Their explanation should be understood from the books of meditation. Concentration can be specifically developed through the practice of concentration, meditation such as mindfulness of breathing. Those who practice pure vipassana can also develop concentration through vipassana. As the Buddha himself said, monks from where the spiritual faculty of concentration should be known. The spiritual faculty of concentration should be known from the four jhanas. Kattacha bhikkhave samadhindriyan datthabbang chatusu jahanesu etta samadhindriyan datthabbang. So samadhi, or the concentration faculty that we can find in the jhanas, that's what it simply means here. So that was about the samadhi, the faculty of concentration. The spiritual faculty of wisdom, the last one. The mind can cognize everything, but it has no clear knowledge of anything. It is just like the sight of a person who has weak sight. For such a person, though can see many things, none of them is as clear to the person who has good sight. There's a certain thing which merges with the mind to see things clearly and correctly. That is called wisdom. It is like a pair of glasses for the weak eyes, or like a light. Since that wisdom dominates the affiliated factors for the obtaining of the object as it is called the spiritual faculty of wisdom. So here's a good point, that the mind itself cannot see things as they are. There's something that can see the things as they are, which is the panya, or the wisdom. We know the mind is something different, and the wisdom or the panya is something different. Mind is the mind, the reality. The panya is different. It is a mental factor that we can find in the wholesome mental factors, the panya. So the panya is the one that does the act of knowing things as they are. From time to time, that wisdom arises in the ordinary person's mind as well. But in their wisdom, it has no power of seeing things as they are. For the practitioners who practice for the gaining of jhana, etc., that weak faculty of wisdom is not sufficient. For that purpose, one must have a sharp wisdom. It is not that easy to think a certain thing which has seen through the eye before as seeing it clearly now. For the attainment of jhana, that objects like casino devices that are not in the presence should be able to call to mind as if seeing through the eyes. For that purpose, one should have a sharp and developed wisdom. For the practice of vipassana to gain supra-mundane path, one should have more sharpened, well-developed, and bright wisdom. What is called the spiritual faculty of wisdom in the factors of enlightenment is the wisdom faculty that was well developed and cultivated for the purpose of serenity and insight. The concentration meditation, there must be wisdom developed by meditation. For vipassana, there must be a wisdom developed by both learning and practicing. The ending of the development of vipassana, of wisdom developed by concentration meditation is gaining different types of knowledge, such as miraculous power, divine ear, divine eye, reading others' mind, recollecting the previous births and seeing beings how they are born in different realms according to their karma. The ending of the development of wisdom developed by vipassana is the attainment of wisdom of the supra-mundane paths and functions. Wisdom should be developed through the both concentration and insight. As it is said, where the spiritual faculty of wisdom should be seen, here the spiritual faculty of wisdom should be seen in the Four Noble Truths. Katta Panyindriyan Dattabbam. Chatosu Arya Satchesu Etta Panyindriyan Dattabbam. When think of the Four Noble Truths, it is to be understood that to the extent that one understands the Four Noble Truths, for that extent, one's spiritual faculty of wisdom has been developed. So earlier it explains that where the concentration meditation ending by gaining those gaining those higher knowledges or abilities like miraculous power, divine eye, divine ear, something like that. But in order to gain the knowledge over the Four Noble Truths, someone has to develop the insight meditation. That is why that we find even in the Buddha's time, there were some ascetics who practiced samatha, the concentration meditation, and had gained some special abilities to see the past lives to some certain extent and practice some miraculous abilities, powers, but they were unable to gain the knowledge or the Four Noble Truths. But those who have practiced insight meditation, they were able to gain the knowledge about the Four Noble Truths, which is the end of developing these faculties. Indriya, the faculty or leadership, has two functions. One of them is keeping others under her leadership, and the other one is suppressing the opponents. Here the faculty is described as a first meaning example, to keep and maintain under its control. The faculty should be described as the other meaning as well. Example, the suppressing of opponents. This is how it is. Doubt, wrong views, delusion, etc. are the opponents of confidence, saddha. It is the action of the faculty of confidence that suppressing them and devoid them from the mind, laziness and sleepiness, etc. are the opponents of striving, virya. Suppressing them and avoiding them from mind is action of the faculty of striving. The sensual desire, etc., that takes one's mind to the pleasant forms, etc., are the opponents of mindfulness and concentration. Suppressing them and avoiding them from the mind is the action of both the faculty of mindfulness and concentration. Delusion is opponent of wisdom. Suppressing it and avoiding it from the mind is the action of the faculty of wisdom. So here what we have to do is when we develop these faculties, it does two functions as mentioned here. One is to develop certain faculties and oppress the opponents or the opponents, which means defilements. There are exact opposite defilements. So in the teachings of the Buddha, it is very important to know that we know that there are defilements. So what we have to do is we have to develop the exact opposite qualities. For an example, in order to suppress or eliminate ignorance, the opposite wholesome factor or the faculties that we are supposed to develop, which is wisdom. Like that, as mentioned here before, that we have to develop the opposite factors of the defilements. Then only then that we can eliminate the defilements forever at the gaining the path and fruitions, knowledges. How to meditate on the spiritual faculties. So anything to be discussed about these faculties that we've discussed so far? Okay, otherwise let's move on. How to meditate on the spiritual faculties. The meditation on the faculties should start with the faculty of confidence. The person who practices this first should learn and understand well the virtues of the Buddha, such as the Buddha is a worthy one, and he is worthy of such and such things. In this manner, he is the self-awakened one. Like that, for the person who knows that the virtues of the Buddha dissipates doubts about the Buddha and his dispensation. Such doubt will never arise again. It is because of the arising of the faculty of confidence. It is because of the lack of confidence that one does not like to practice according to the teachings of the Buddha, and though started always going backwards. The lack of confidence, faithlessness, is a great obstacle for one's principle. So in order to develop the faculty of saddha, we need to practice or learn about the Buddha and practice the recollection of the virtues of the Buddha, like Araham Samma Sambuddha, knowing those qualities of the Buddha well, virtues, knowing those virtues, and we have to practice the meditation, like Buddhanusati, recollection on the virtues of the Buddha. As much as we know, as much as we practice, we can develop confidence. At the same time, we can suppress the opposite of the confidence, like doubts, like that, unwholesome factors, that we can suppress them and we can develop saddha, which is a very important factor, vital factor to develop all the other wholesome qualities in the teachings of the Buddha. Since the person who has developed the faculty of confidence has no such obstacles, so he can make striving for the unarising of the unarisen unwholesome. For the avoiding of the arisen unwholesome and for the development of the arisen wholesome. That striving makes for the unarisen of the unarisen unwholesome, etc. is a spiritual faculty of striving. In such a way, the spiritual faculty of striving should be developed. The person who has developed the spiritual faculty of striving never forgets wholesome things. That unforgetfulness itself is a spiritual faculty of mindfulness that is to be developed with the contemplation of the four establishments of mindfulness. For the person who is mindful can develop concentration according to the mindfulness. That is the spiritual faculty of concentration. For the person who has developed confidence, developed mindfulness, and developed concentration, arises the knowledge. There is no beginning of samsara for beings who are wandering in samsara, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. The complete eradication and cessation of ignorance and craving is a peaceful nibbana. That is a spiritual faculty of wisdom. When it is developed, there arises the supra-mundane knowledge of the path. Afterwards, in that noble disciple of the Buddha arises the unwavering confidence. As earlier I knew the Dhamma only by listening, but now I have experienced the Dhamma. Among the 5 spiritual faculties, these 3, namely spiritual faculty of confidence, striving, and mindfulness, are secondary. And the spiritual faculty of concentration and wisdom, samadhi and panya, are the most important ones. What really needed for the practitioners are these 2 faculties. The first 3 are necessary for the purpose of developing of these 2. The attainment of jhana, from the first one to the 8 attainments, are the mundane development of spiritual faculty of concentration. Its supra-mundane development is the attainment of concentration of emptiness, concentration of signlessness, and the concentration of desirelessness. The knowledge-like purity of view, the 3 contemplations such as the contemplation of emptiness, the 10 knowledge of insight, the 4 knowledge of paths, the 4 knowledges of fusions, and the knowledges of reflection are also the development of spiritual faculty of wisdom. Of the 2 spiritual faculty of concentration and wisdom, the faculty of wisdom is the chief. Beings are led to Nibbana by the spiritual faculty of wisdom. Therefore, in many discourse, the Buddha has said, monks, among all factors of enlightenment, the spiritual faculty of wisdom is the foremost one. Seyatapi bhikkhave yekechi bodhipakya dhamma panyindriyante sang aggamakkhayati. That's what it says. Among all the other, the enlightened, the factors of enlightenment, the faculty of wisdom is the main one, the foremost one. Once the Buddha said, monks, it is said among all trees in Jambudipa, the rose apple tree is the best. Likewise, among all the factors of enlightenment, the faculty of wisdom is the best. The rose apple, the tree, the name has given to this continent as Jambudipa because of this particular tree, Jambudipa, or the rose apple tree. So that is what it is about, the mention here. The benefit of meditation on the spiritual faculties. Monks, these are the 5 faculties. What 5? The faculty of confidence, the faculty of striving, the faculty of mindfulness, the faculty of concentration, and the faculty of wisdom. Monks, the one who has completed and fulfilled these 5 faculties is an arahant. If there are weaker than that, one is a non-returner, anagami. If still weaker, one's returner, sakadagami. If still weaker, a stream enterer. If still weaker, a Dhamma follower. If still weaker, a faith follower. Yes, there are some Pali on words there. So it is, it means that all these faculties are fully developed when one reaches the arahanthood. Before that, even other higher attainments like sohan, Sri Mentor, once returner and non-returner, in those noble ones also, these faculties are not fully developed. Yes, they're established, but they're not fully developed. Only when they achieve the arahanthood is the stage of where they develop these faculties in full. So to developing as much as possible these faculties are very important. As we have learned the teachings of the Buddha, we know that there are certain occasions or the many instances in the Buddha's time where the beings were able to attain the higher attainments by just simply listening to verses or one verse. The reason is because that they had developed these faculties in their previous lives. For example, like most venerable Sariputta Thera, that he had to listen only one verse with 4 lines. With the first 2 lines that he was able to gain so on, the Sri Mentor, even that he had never met the Buddha before. But the reason why that he was able to attain the first spiritual stage is that he had developed these faculties well in his previous lives. And the other thing is that the Buddha, he had some very special knowledge about how to know the beings, about the being's faculties, which specific faculties develop, which one is not developed, like that he had that knowledge, which is called in Pali Indriya Paropariyatti Jnani, that we know the Buddha when he's going to teach or give Dhamma talks, that he could see the followers or the listeners development of each of these faculties, then that he teaches accordingly their development of the faculties. As we know that there are many occasions, like for an example, that the serial killer Angulimala, that the Buddha knew that this person had the ability to comprehend the teachings. And he approached him and gave the guidance, and he was able to attain the higher attainments. Like that, those who have developed these faculties, when the Buddha appear in the world, those people can get the benefit by developing these faculties. So that it is our duty to try the best to develop these faculties, as we've discussed before, like practicing alms and doing some wholesome activities. They're not the faculties, as it mentions here, that when we develop like jhanas, um, like powerful, wholesome deeds, then these faculties or the factors develop to the level of faculties or indriya. Otherwise, even in small wholesome activities, these factors appear in the world like panya and sati, saddha, virya, like these faculties, but they are not counted as the indriyas. So anything to be discussed about these factors that we have some time?
When concentration is developed and cultivated, many streams of consciousness could be maintained on one object. What does that mean, Bhante? I thought only one, you can have one sit at a time, right? So how?
Yes, yes. What here means is that when we develop concentration, like jhana, we can focus to certain object for some time, maybe 1 or 2 hours or something like that. So the same chittas appear in the um, regarding a same object. That is why it is called jhana. So the mind does not wandering to certain different objects. So the mind can focus on the same object, which means that we know the mind means
right.
the streams of minds.
Yeah. So the entire stream is on that one object. That's what it means.
Exactly, exactly. That's what
Without
happens.
changing.
Yes, that's what happens when you develop jhana. And that is why it is encouraged to develop jhana, because when you develop jhana, you have that ability to focus on one object for a long time, which is opposite for a average person or ordinary person. They cannot do that easily. So when you develop that ability, it is helpful to practice insight meditation. So after coming out from jhana, still it has the power of that jhana, which means that he is able to focus on single object for a long time. Then he can understand the universal natures like anicca, dukkha, anatta. Yes. Is it clear, Mahendra?
Yes, Bhante. So in keeping your mind on the object, so it's on one particular aspect of the object to be a single stream of, or the same stream of consciousnesses, isn't it?
Yes.
Not,
Yes.
you're not looking at different aspects of that object, but
Of
the
course.
same aspect.
Yes. It's like when we develop concentration based on our, inhale and exhale, our breathing.
But in that one, Bhante, your mind is moving, at least your observation is moving between in and out. So there you can't say it's the same stream, right? Because they are two, you're changing. There's
Yeah,
a pause and then
but
changes.
object is same, the body of breath.
Oh.
Asasa, pasasa, kaya.
Mhm. So it's the entirety of the function of that breath, including.
Breath, yes. And yes, time to time, that it says in the Satipatthana Sutta as well, like short inhale and long inhale, like that. Yes.
Warm and cold, yeah. All the different sensations, but they all fall into the one
object. It is called yes, like in Pali, asasa kaya, something like that word. Kaya means body of breath. It's not about the physical body. Yes.
Sorry, Bhante, if the mind is aware of the shortness of the breath or the longness or whatever that quality is,
Yes.
then at that time of that observation, the mind is moving away from, say, the sensation of the breath. So isn't there, like, I find that I tend to think of it as the mind is moving because it's looking at different aspects of the breath.
As far as I know, that what it develops is a concentration. Yeah, it doesn't matter what happens to the body of the breath. Maybe it's long or short, but still it develops the concentration.
So looking at the breath as a whole.
Yes,
Yeah.
and yes, when we practice some other meditations as well, like Buddha Hanusati. Yes, we cannot get jhana, but we can develop concentration when we practice those reflective meditations like Maranamsati, Buddhanusati. When we practice that, we focus on different qualities of the Buddha. Yeah, but still it says that we can develop the concentration. Let's see about the 5 spiritual powers, the Pancha Bala, monks. There are these 5 spiritual powers. What 5? The spiritual power of confidence, the spiritual power of striving, the spiritual power of mindfulness, the spiritual power of concentration, and the spiritual power of wisdom. Panchimani bhikkhave balani katamani pancha saddha balam virya balam sati balam samadhi balam panya balam imani bhikkhave pancha balani. There are various powers in the world. In the book of Patisambhida Magga, it is mentioned that there are 68 types of powers. Each of them is not necessary for the practitioners. In the Mahapadana Sutta, it has been stated that there are retinues of Mara who never allows the people to come to the path to Nibbana, and harm to those who have already come to the path as beginners, and avoid them from the path and completely block the path to them. Laypersons are deluded by craving for sensual pleasures, such as pleasure of having a spouse and children and wealth. They are not allowed to merge into the path to Nibbana and obstruct the path. That sensual pleasures is one of the giants of the retinue of Mara. For those who have suppressed and avoided these sensual pleasures from the mind and entered the path to Nibbana as monastic, it hinders as discontentment or subtle resentment. Instead, contentment of the 4 usages of monastic principles, namely the contentment of robes, whatever is offered, food, whatever is offered, shelter as whatever available, and engage in meditation. That discontentment for monastic is a giant of the retinue of Mara. The one who depends on others as a monastic may afflict with both hunger and thirst without obtaining enough food and drinks. That afflictions which suppressed the monastic is another giant of the retinue of Mara. Such a monk who is suppressed with both hunger and thirst has thirst of seeking. With that his mind is oppressed and makes him feeble. That thirst which makes the mind feeble is a giant of a retinue of Mara. When the mind is feeble, there arises laziness and sleepiness. That is another giant of the retinue of Mara. The one who does not gain any special virtues like jhana because of laziness and sleepiness has fear of living in the woods apart from the public. That fear is another giant of the retinue of Mara. One who lives with fear without gaining the taste and happiness of seclusion in the mind arises doubt of whether there is a benefit or not of the principle of seclusion. That is another giant of the retinue of Mara, gaining even a little virtue from this principle, having intoxicated from that arisen depreciation, which devalues another's worth. That is another giant of the retinue of Mara. Because of that little virtue, then in him arises stubbornness. The nature of not respecting of those who are worthy to be respected and obedient, those who are worthy to be obedient. That is a giant of the retinue of Mara, because of the little virtue, having intoxicated from gain, fame, and praise, becomes self-acceleration, exaltation. That is giant of the retinue of Mara. It is opposite, is the next, that is contempt of others. That is a giant of the retinue of Mara. It is easy to be protected from the enemy who attacked from outside. This retinue of Mara attacks the person who are willing to realize Nibbana not from the outside, but from within their minds. Therefore, suppression of the retinue of Mara is a very difficult task. It is impossible to do it with bombs or cannons. For that purpose, one should have the power of mind. As it is impossible to the person to go through the road where the enemies are waiting, or entering a place where the enemies are guarding, or has no power of suppressing and destroying the enemies, it is impossible to tread the path to Nibbana to a person who has no power to bear up the pressure of Mara, and to suppress and drive away the retinue of Mara, who blocks the path to Nibbana by closing the door of Nibbana. Therefore, all those who wish to attain Nibbana should develop a power that enables to suppress the retinue of Mara. Here in this Dhamma talk of the factors of enlightenment shows the 5 powers which are to be developed by the practitioners who make striving to attain by suppressing the retinue of Mara. The 5 mental powers are the power of confidence, the power of striving, the power of mindfulness, the power of concentration, and the power of wisdom. The characteristics of the 5 things like confidence were mentioned in the above section when we talked about the spiritual faculties. Here, what is more important to understand is their nature of power. What is called the power of confidence is a confidence that which is powerful enough to unshaken by defilements like greed, bearable of pressures of defilement, and forceful to destroy and defeat defilements. The normal confidence that everybody has gotten is not sufficient enough to suppress defilements. Most people who have gained confidence through listening to the Dhamma talks think to practice generosity, morality, or to perform many kinds of meritorious deeds. But within a fraction of a second, craving arises and stops them all. They are overcome by craving and do nothing as they contemplate upon this. The confidence of those who are performing meritorious deeds, expecting wealth, properties, fame, or praise, is a confidence fitting to craving. Confidence in line with craving, which is a desire of wealth and properties. That is not a confidence that enables to destroy craving. Thus, it is to be understood that the confidence of the general folks who are performing meritorious deeds such as generosity is not a power of confidence of the factors of enlightenment. That power of confidence of the factors of enlightenment, which is skillful enough to suppress craving, is something pertaining to the noble usages. Aryavansa Dhamma, the place where it is inhabited and developed its noble usages. For some persons, the power of confidence arises pretty soon by listening to the Dhamma talks, etc. That is why some persons, having listened to the Dhamma, being detached from their spouse, children, and properties, having abundant spouse, children, relatives, friends, and wealth, go from home to the state of homelessness. It is because there arose in them a powerful confidence which could enable to tumble the aggregate of craving. These humans suffer greatly because of their loving spouse, children, and wealth. Sometimes, in order to protect them, they sacrifice their life, but they never abandon their desire for them. That is the power of craving. One should not think that confidence which enables to destroy craving, persisting in the human's mind from the time immemorial, is a trivial power. That is a great power. That great power arises quickly in some persons only. By others, it should be developed gradually by listening to Dhamma, learning and reading the Dhamma books and papers, and practicing both serenity and insight meditation. The nature of the power of striving, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom are also to be understood according to the power of confidence. The one who has not even one power, it is quite difficult to develop a power. However, the one who has one power, it is certainly easy to develop the other four powers as well. Anyhow, most of the young men from good families who have entered the Sasana dispensation in this time with weak confidence also have inundated with the flood of desire of things related to the temples, devotees, disciples, and the gratification of the senses, dwell apart from the noble usages. The only means for them to come out of it is the development of mental powers within themselves individually. May all make every effort to dispel the retinues of Mara who have entered the individual's mind and bring again and again the sufferings of birth, decay, disease, death, and the suffering of hell, and attain the perfect peace of Nibbana. So the five powers are also the same in the name as we discussed the five faculties, but it works indifferently. As we've discussed in this section, the powers means bala, which have the ability to suppress the opposite or the kilesas or the defilements, which was mentioned here as maras. So that is about the five powers, which is also same as the five faculties. I think that is enough for today. So anything to discuss about these five powers? Then let's wind up today. We'll discuss the rest of the topics from next week. All right, today then we all discuss this noble Dhamma. We learned this noble Dhamma. So we generated enormous amounts of wholesome thoughts in our hearts. So let's transfer, let's share these merits to our departed relatives. May all our relatives who have passed away accept these merits and may well, happy and prosperous Idammi ñātīnaṁ hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idammi ñātīnaṁ hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idammi ñātīnaṁ hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Let's share these merits to the divine beings as well. Ittavata cha amhehi sambhatam punya sampradam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata cha amhehi sambhatam punya sampradam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata cha amhehi sambhatam punya sampradam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. By the power of these merits that we've generated right now, may lead us to supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Everyone saranai.